There's a few different degrees of what we can do with the bottom bracket. What I want to show you is in different steps of how we can actually take it apart, fit it, and also how we can service it in different stages. So I'll show you the different ways. First of all, you've got to remove your cranks. So if you just loosen off your 5mm Allen keys, bolt either side there, just one on either side. Inside there's a little security tab there. Just make sure you flip that out. Then take out the centre bolt. Take that out there. Then all simply do, pull off there. Just make sure you don't lose the O-ring from the back of there. Just gently tap. Won't be tight in there, so no need to whack it hard or anything. Just spin it. That just gets your chain off your granny ring then. And that just slides out nicely. So you've got an O-ring in the back of there as well, so we'll clean that up so that's ready to go back on. Now it's inevitable that you are going to get a lot of dirt build up around here. Common for bottom brackets, do get a lot of hassle, but what we can actually do is if you get something similar to a 90-degree pick, just pull the seal down to one side. You see, you just pop it out. Don't go ripping at it, you just be gentle. Just gently pop that out. See? Now there are two sides to the seal, as you can see. There's a step there. Make sure that goes to the outside. If you get it that way around, you'll end up bending the seal inwards. And the bottom bracket will drag, so make sure it goes that way. So we'll clean all that up. Then gently wipe. If you think it's grating a little bit, sometimes what happens, you can get a little bit of grit that just goes in the seal there, but it's actually not in the bearing, it's only where the seal contacts the aluminium part where it sits, so it's nothing really to worry about, and you can buy the seals separate. So if you just have a quick inspection, just a nice wipe inside, check to see if you can see any play in there. No, that feels all good. And it's just basically just making sure everything's clean. Just nice little clean round. Don't press too hard, and don't flick the seals out and think you can pump grease into them or all like that. Just a nice wipe round there. Then if you just get some grease, reapply it around the edge. You're no good at baking cakes. Get that sat in there. Then if you just clean your seal up as well, just make sure that's all nice and clean. And then don't forget the step to the outside there. And then if you have to try and sit it in the groove there, can you see I'm just trying to fold it with my fingers, push it in, and then just gently run your thumb around there, your nail. And if you can rock it like that, that means it's in place. If you can't, it means it might be stuck out on one part of the edge there. But if you can rock it like that, no noise there now, just all nice and smooth. And if it's got to the stage where you have to replace the bearings, it's easy. Just crack the bottom bracket undone. Now if you're taking the left side cup out, it's right hand thread. If you always remember it, left hand side's right hand thread, right hand side's left hand thread, so it's a pretty easy way, just remember it as being opposites. Unscrew that. Now it's a similar procedure to flick the seal out as before. You can just pull that down to one side, flick the seal out there. Now if you're finding the bearings feeling a bit ropey, you've had maybe grass wrapped around it and it's opened up the seals, there is a tool available. Here we have the bearing tool. So there's two different recesses there. Now the cup sits that way around into there, leaving room for the bearing to come out. If you put it that way, the bearing will jam on there. So you press that into there, and take a soft hammer. So once we've actually got the bearing out, you've got to clean it all up obviously. So just give it a nice wipe inside. Now the important part is to clean the seal groove out. That's where all the dirt hides, all the grit, and that's probably where most of the noise comes from as well. So give that a good clean out. Then replace the bearing. We want to get some grease. Just helps the bearing slide in better there. Just smear it about. You get your new bearing. Sit it in push it in a little bit if you can with your fingers, just to get a start on the bearing so it doesn't twist when you put it in. Now sit it to that side of the tool, to the edge there. Gently rest that in there. Get this part of your tool, sit that on there. Now can you see it's touching the outer part of your bearing there? What happens is if you just press the centre of the bearing, it'll flat spot the balls. If you flat spot the balls, when you spin your cranks, it'll be notchy. It's as each ball's turning, it's hitting the flat spot. Get that nice and square there. That's it. That's seated all the way in then. So after that, just check it, make sure it rotates nicely. Don't go braying at it. If you get it twisted, push it back out again. Make sure you haven't damaged the cup in any way. Just make sure there's no marks and then try again. Don't keep braying at it because that's when the damage starts. Then take your grease gun. Obviously you just might be using a brush with grease, squirting it on. Just get a smear on it. Then get your seal, making sure you get the outer step to the outside there. Push that inside and just run your finger around. Again, make sure you can rock it around. That shows that it's seated in properly. Then we need to go and install it back in. Just wipe around your centre tube. Take your other cup out and carry out the same procedure. Just make sure everything's clean. Get rid of all the dirty grease. Reapply a little bit more. Just around the O-ring. Just check your O-ring, make sure there's no marks on that. Gently slip that into there. Just inspect your threads, make sure there's no damage. If you've got any dirt inside there, make sure it's all wiped out and all dry. Thread that back in there. There is actually an arrow on the cup that explains how to tighten, which direction, so double check that if you're not sure. Nip that up. There, nice and tight, ready to install your cranks now. Right, so after we've cleaned all the axle off there, just reapply some grease. You don't need loads because, to be fair, most of it's going to get scraped out against the seal anyway. Just helps it slide in a little bit better, and then get that on there. Obviously, need to hook your chain on. If you hold your chain out, then you can just sit that onto your granny ring there. Bit of a gentle tap. Make sure you left your O-ring on the actual axle where we showed you before. Same there, leave that O-ring, make sure that O-ring's in place, clean it up. Get it to 180 degrees away, unless you put it the other way around. It'll be like a horse jockey then when it's going up and down. Just make sure that slides on nicely. Take your star nut there, gentle white. Now this is the most important part. This is where a lot of people tend to go wrong. They think they need to nip it up and nip it a bit more just to be secure, but you don't. Right, nip it up, back it off, then just gently nip it. The thing is with bottom brackets, the pressure you put on the side there creates pressure on the bearing. That's where the damage is done. If you're preloading the bearings, you're just creating extra wear. The idea is, in my motto, less is more. Less pressure, get more life out of your bearings. So what you do, nip it up, back it off, nip it up again. You won't, if there wasn't enough tension on there, your cranks would move. But we're talking quarter of a turn, you would never ever notice that movement. If you nip it up quarter of a turn too much, that's quarter of a turn pressure on your bearings. You can tell, if you take the chain off and just spin it on its own, you can notice that difference. But if you nip it up tight, you can't rotate your bearings. So that's extra drag when you're pedalling. So just nip it, back it off, nip it a little bit. Then we take your 5mm Allen key, nip up the bolts. They actually recommend 12 to 15 Newton meters on these bolts. Do it evenly. If you just drive on one without putting pressure on the other, chances are you might strip the threads. So just nip them up. Once you've got them tight, make sure you put your security tab back in there. That's it. Ready to rumble.